I've got all these adjusted. Now what you'll want to do once you choose the frequency band is to again solo them, and you know what, I'll just do it again. So bring these down, then you'd go back and listen to the bass again. And what you want to do here is you want to adjust this, bring this down. Normally I'll have this set to flatline it, so if it gets past a certain volume level it just sticks there and it won't get any louder. And I bring it down until I can tell the difference, and then I give it some little bit of headroom here so that it doesn't squash it completely. Then I do that for all the other frequency bands. You got to be very careful with the bands that have a lot of dynamic content that you want to hear, because if you're not too careful it will just end up being loud and not good sounding, which is not what mastering is about. So I'll bring that back to the way I had it and play it again. Yeah, so these orange things show how much each one is being reduced in volume. So just a little indication of how much it's being squashed. Well, let's see, the next thing in my signal is the EQ, okay? So right here, for the EQ, typically I'll take different bands, and so like this band for example, I turn it up so that it's a nice pointy little band, and then I'll listen to it. Now what I'm doing here is I'll sweep the frequencies and try to find a frequency that's annoying to my ear. So one that I found in this song was at 215. So here, I'll just play. But if you've done a good job mixing it, you shouldn't have very many of these offending bands, but I happen to have one at 215. So what I did is I dropped it down just 2.5 decibels. When you're doing mastering EQ, be very, very careful. Again, mastering is touchy, so don't adjust it more than, if you're adjusting it more than 3 dB, then you're probably doing something wrong. And then another thing I did was I have this band right here, which cuts it off after I get past 24 Hertz, because I've got some sub-bass stuff in there that's not necessary and just steals some of my loudness that I can have. So I cut it out past 24 Hertz, and plus hardly anyone can hear that. I guess you more feel it, but it has no part in my song, so I took that out. Again, be careful when taking out bass frequencies, because if you don't have good speakers, you won't be able to tell what you're missing. Alright, the next step that I have in this is my limiter. What this does basically is it makes everything loud. So I'm going to cut off the bypass and play a little bit. Now what this does is it sort of acts like the multiband compressor, except it covers every frequency and it's not a compressor. It's a limiter, which means that it cuts it off even faster than this little curve. So it stops all the super loud things from coming through. So what I've done here is what you do is you set the output level to 0 dB, which means it will never get louder than 0 dB, which is the maximum volume you can have before it gives you clipping, which is bad. It gives you a nasty crackly sound if you have your song clipping, so don't do that. So what this does is it looks ahead at the signal and it finds where the signal is too loud to be under 0 dB, and then it brings the volume down just a little bit at that part so that you can have it at 0 dB so it doesn't clip. So what I've done here is I brought it up to 7.5 until my song sounded loud, but at the same time I also don't want my song to lose dynamic range. If you bring it way up, it'll just sound nasty. So let's see if I see what this sounds like once I've brought it way up. So what that does, it just gets rid of all the dynamics, so everything is loud, and that's not something that you want in a song. Let's see, I'll bring it back to what I had it at, and there you go. So this is what I do when I'm mastering, and Well, that's basically all the stuff that I adjust. This is a very simple explanation. I'm sure that if you're doing work professionally, definitely don't do this. Send it off to a mastering house. But since I don't have money like that, I'm doing it here, and I get pretty decent results with these tools. So you guys just keep practicing with this stuff. Make sure you listen to your song on multiple sets of speakers, and let's see. Also, listen to professional mixes to compare your masters to so that you can see what it should sound like. But then again, you're not going to get it quite like they get it because they have professionals who have been training their ears for umpteen years. Yep. Oh yeah, and I'll also explain what these two tools are up here. What this one is it shows how much how wide the stereo image is here. So if it's at +1, then it's like mono, basically. And then if it's right here, then it's like the signal sounds like a huge signal. It's very wide sound. You hear things coming left and right and front and back and all that stuff. This song, it's mostly, it stays mostly around the mono area, which is alright. It just depends on what kind of mix you're looking for. But also be careful if it goes into the negatives, if it goes into the red, what that means is that if somebody listens to it on a mono speaker, what it will do is sounds will cancel each other out. So what will happen is the waves will hit each other, the waves for the left and right will hit each other, and they'll cancel each other out so you don't hear anything for some frequencies. So you might want to watch that. It's usually not a problem for me. And also right here, this shows you the peak and the root mean square. The peak is the volume at its loudest points. So you can see that as the taller bar on these. See, the peak was almost always hitting the 0 for this. Now, the root mean square is what human ear thinks it sounds like. This is because human ears don't really pick up these tiny little changes quite so much. When you're listening for loudness, you don't hear little peaks of loudness as really loud. You hear everything being loud as loudness. So the RMS, or root mean square, that's what your ear hears as the loudness. So the difference between the peak and the RMS is basically your dynamics in the song, how quickly things are moving up and down in volume. This one I've crushed a little bit because this is a electronic song and generally they improve from this. But if you're doing some acoustic guitar thing, just be very careful with mastering. Don't crush it because it will sound terrible. Alright, so I think that's all I have to show you guys. Oh wait, one more thing. Okay, one more thing. Once you're done with all of this, you'll want to again go to bounce. So click here or up here, file, bounce. And then this time you want to export it as a 16-bit audio file. Now to do this, you'll have to do dithering, because what this does is it takes the bits and it smooths it out so that it doesn't have any harsh angles in it. Probably won't be able to tell the difference. I don't know what these different sounds are, but apparently this one is the most natural. Well, it gives you the most accurate dithering, which means it makes it look, it makes the sound what it should be, and then these other ones give it these different characters. But I haven't experimented with these yet. You could probably read about them if you Google it, but yeah, that's something that you'll want to look into. But so you choose these settings. You'll want to turn off normalize. You can turn off include audio tail, because if you have the right audio selected, you won't have an audio tail, which is like extra reverb at the end. But don't worry about that. Don't normalize it, because that's what you've done. You've done all the limiting and stuff, normalizing that you need to do over here in your mastering process. And so you just make sure this is all the way you want it, export it, and money, I don't know, friends, fame, fortune, could be any of those. But hope you guys enjoyed this, and I can't wait to show you guys my album, because this is one of the songs that's going to be on my album, so I guess you guys got exclusive sneak peek or something like that just for watching my video. Alright, thanks guys. Have a great day.